Welcome to Night Light. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Neon Twilight with your host, Solaris BlueRaven. We have a great topic we're going to be talking on tonight, at least starting out with, and it's a topic that Solaris and I are asked about quite often. I guess that's assuming we're experts in the field, but let me bring her on. Solaris, welcome to your show.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be here again and communicate.
It's a highlight of my month, to be honest with you. And
I'm flattered. I'm honored, actually. And likewise, I enjoy it, too. So it's our fun time.
And I actually learned stuff, too. That's even better.
Mm-hmm.
But the topic tonight is relationships and spirituality. And as a sensitive or an empath, and you as well, being in the same field, it's a question we get asked almost guaranteed when somebody finds out that we're sensitive or intuitive or whatever. They ask about their love life and they ask about relationships. And it's a topic that everybody seems focused on, and rightly so, I guess, but I think we've never actually addressed it on the show. And I think it's a great idea to do that.
I think so, too. Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think the many faces of love, actually, because love does have a lot of faces. And I bet we could name a dozen or more. I mean, love of family, love of country, love of friends, love of home, love of food, love of, I mean, we use that four-letter word so frequently. I think it loses a lot of its power because of it. You know, I love avocados. Well, my feeling for an avocado is very different from my feeling for a good friend or a partner. So. I think that sometimes we get confused with the word and the concept, and sometimes people use it as a bargaining chip. You know, I'll love you if. And so how do people determine just what kind of love? I mean, I've loved some people in the same way I love my animals. I think they're dumber than whatever, and I just love them because they hang around me. Now, that's some friends, and it's also my cats. So, how do you determine what kind of love it is we're talking when people say, oh, I fell, it was love at first sight? Was it really love or was it lust? I mean, how do you tell the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think a lot of the time love's been used, it's kind of been co-opted in the sense of being generic now. I think that's the biggest problem we're running into. So when people say they love this and that, it doesn't have any value energetically, in my opinion. I don't think there's a real emotional compassion or something very, very deep at the heart level or the soul level. This is my observation of it. So I think that needs to be changed at some point.
What term would you use instead of love when you have deep feelings for someone that they have earned, and it's an aspect I think true love is, and earned is probably not the right word, but over time true love does evolve out of friendship, so that there is a curve of the Clouder ring. I love the Clouder rings because they represent friendship, love, and loyalty. And, those three things go together and they create an energetic that is just profoundly amazing. But to call it love doesn't explain the totality of the feeling. So what term would you use?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, some people say they care, and I think that's kind of empty too, to be honest with you. So I think the generic version of love really is something that's universal in a sense. People, if they relay that data to somebody, if they relay that communication of love, I love this person, or I love that, then it makes the other person feel better, I'm sure. So, but I don't really think it's a solution either, because to me it doesn't seem like it still doesn't have that deep soul spirit connection when they're utilizing the word. So. Yeah, it's very interesting, but that's how society has adapted. I mean, we just use terminology that kind of has lost its luster or value.
Yeah, and when you think about the source of all creation is unconditional love, and unconditional love means just that. And I don't know that humans are capable of unconditional love. That means no conditions. That means I can love you to pieces, but you don't have to love me, and that's okay because I'm still happy. And I don't know many people who can say that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. That's another one that's kind of interesting.
Unconditional means, if one of us is Republican and one is Democrat, that's okay. We still love each other. We just don't talk politics. I mean,
people don't act like that.
I love you unconditionally, even though you're a jerk. How does that work? I mean,
yeah, I agree. I think it's words that don't have value in a sense. They're kind of generic. They sound good, but in my opinion, they're really not the right word to use in situations like that. There's universal love. I mean, that's kind of an infinite love, and I kind of correlate that to the same to some degree. But, yeah, I don't know. It's a really good topic in the sense of how do you really go deep and define those perimeters for love and how I think love is a spirit, soul, energy, a cosmic, like a cosmic force.
And I think, and this is my own personal opinion, but I believe that you cannot possibly love another person unless you love yourself first.
Yep, I agree.
And
self-love is a big deal.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And I don't know how many times I've heard people say, well, I'm strong where he's weak and he's strong where I'm weak, and we make a good couple because together we make a complete person. Well, that's not what love is. That's two codependent people getting together and trying to survive, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's their thing. But I wanted to see if we couldn't hash out something that we could give to people that would give them some idea as to just what love really is.
Right.
The poets have certainly gone extreme with it, and that's lovely, and the words are beautiful, but love is not a word. Love is a feeling. And it feels to me as though you have to incorporate the spirituality into it in order for for the word to have any meaning. And I think that's that's where I kind of am trying to explain the concept of love, because it isn't a word, it's a feeling, and you need to have the spiritual aspect of it working in concert with the physical aspect of it in order to really have a gift to share with another person.
Yep, that's a very good definition. Yes, me. Because it is something you feel, and soul to soul, spirit to spirit. And you just have that gnosis, too, that correlates to the gnosis. But it's also, in my opinion, people who've done a lot of spiritual work on themselves tend to be able to dial into that deep love a lot easier, in my opinion, than those who haven't. And once again, you were talking about how some people are fulfilled. They have to fulfill themselves through other people, and I think that's wrong. You have to heal your body on all levels of your being, and go into that level where you are full and complete unto yourself, and then you can expand into relationships where they're balanced. So I don't think people do that, because I think it's, once again, it boils down to spiritual path working and going into deeper levels of your divinity. And then you get that emotional content connected to higher consciousness. At least that's the way it seems for me.
Yeah, it seems that if you truly have a loving relationship, there is a sense of even telepathic connection. But I don't think many people, and many people love their partners and they're very happy, and that's wonderful. I think what we're struggling here tonight with is the concept of, okay, so if you want to take that love another step, where do you go? You don't have to. If you're content and you're blissful, then you're perfect where you are. But there are always other levels you can ascend to if you so desire. And if both people don't want to do it, that's okay. If you're happy, that's fine. But the first love has to be to the self. And if you feel incomplete, if you feel there's something missing, then you should seek it. But you don't seek it in another person. You seek it in yourself. And that's where I think some people veer off the path, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. And there is that chemistry that goes on with relationships. There's a fire that connects in, and sometimes it's spirit-based, and sometimes it's just chemistry is really powerful. But that also fuels the spirit and the soul, in my opinion. So all those things can be combined into the relationship itself.
And sometimes you can have. You can be where you're supposed to be and the other person isn't, and you still try to make it work, and it doesn't work. I've had 2 marriages, both of which ended in divorce. And as I look back on them, I really, I can't analyze or criticize the other person, because of course they were on their own journey. But I can look at me, and I can see how I was not as complete as I should have been. I had a lot of growing to do, and I couldn't grow in that kind of a relationship because I wasn't about to become the person they wanted me to be. And, it's not blaming anybody, just saying that I was on a spiritual journey, and I would get to a certain place and I would realize this isn't working for me. It's not that they were bad people, they just weren't the right people to be with and to be able to grow. So for me, especially at times of a lot of growth, it was more important to be alone. And, my last relationship, he died, so, there was no problem there. I mean, I wouldn't have killed him or divorced him, but, it's the way it worked. But I do think that the spiritual journey is a solitary one. And if you can find someone who is doing their own journeying, not in the exact same way, but their own journeying, so that you respect other people's space, that's a good place to be. I mean, I'm beginning to think. I'm beginning to even, of course, I'm older now, so I understand that marriage is important when you have children and stuff like that, but to have a relationship that is spiritually and physically complete doesn't require a certificate from the government to say that you can be together.
Mhm.
So
Very true.
I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm not down on marriage. I think lots of people, do it and need it and enjoy it and they're happy in it, and that's great.
Mhm.
But I'm looking at what are the relationships that go into these places,
right.
and do people continue to grow? And in my mind, if you are not growing, there's no point in being here.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you. And a lot of times they get in a rut too. Marriages, they just they just kind of float along. They get in their little habits, and that sort of thing continues on. And I think nowadays, especially, it seems like there's more of a contract with relationships. It's more about money and business. It's more of a business contract and less true love. At least that's what I've observed. Not with everybody, but quite a few. And even with children, I mean, everything seems like an investment. It's very, very interesting looking at it from afar, just kind of observing it. But yeah, I think that once the relationship, either one side or the other, if it's not in resonance, then something's going to fall away, in my opinion, and eventually the marriage will dissolve. It's just the way it is, because certain beings, as we work our path working, we're going to higher levels of our consciousness where our vibration's changing, and sometimes the vibration isn't in resonance with a partner, and that can cause some problems too. Usually they get that through osmosis. I mean, they'll get some of it, but not all of it, and eventually it's almost suffocating to spirit. So, in my opinion, and I'm older too now, and I couldn't even fathom the idea of being in a type of relationship or marriage. No. It's like, that got the picture in the hat. That's it.
Well, I think, quite often when we're younger, we get into a relationship and we're in a groove, and it's perfect and it's wonderful, but that groove eventually becomes a rut and prevents both people from growing. And I think one of the major issues that I feel is that when people are getting into a relationship and they've been alone for a while, and that's important to not go relationship to relationship to relationship, because then you just bring red flags with you and it's miserable. But there's a sense here of following your dreams, following your bliss. I don't know how you want to put it exactly, but everyone has a focus that they come into this lifetime with. They have a roadmap, and in order to follow it, they have to continue to be working upon it. And so often when people get together, one person will sacrifice their dream for the other person, and it's fascinating, because as a single person, your dream creates a light within you, a flame within you, and that draws somebody else to you. But if you put your flame out to help the other person, they suddenly say, wait a minute, you're not the person that I was attracted to, and then everything falls apart. So continuing to follow your dream while being with a partner is a very hard thing to do, and yet some people manage it beautifully.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's self-sacrificing. People just overextend themselves in relationships, and that's not okay. There has to be a balance.
Well, you can't say, okay, I'll let go of my dreams and help you reach your dreams. And when you do that, you don't become the person that they were attracted to, and they lose the attraction. So continue, and it's very hard to maintain your forward motion when there's another person there and they're doing their thing, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that today especially, relationships are really hard to maintain, and I don't know, maybe there should be a way to just, have a contract with another person rather than, a legal document that forces you to be with a person, because, you can't afford to not be together. So there has to be a better way.
Most people live together, don't they? Without a contract, although if you live with somebody long enough, you're considered married anyway.
Only in some states. Actually, in a lot of
I thought
states,
it was that
no, well, you have to, first of all, you have to declare that you want to be common law, and that makes you legal. So, it's I don't know. I think living together is a good idea, but it depends on how old you are. I mean, if you're going to bring children into the world, I think it does take it. In many cases, it takes two people, but it doesn't always. Because I managed with my son, and he's okay. He turned out really, really well. So I can't say anything about people who are single parents because it can be. You can work it, but
right.
We just came through Valentine's Day, and it was all mushy for everybody, and people got flowers, and that's lovely. But what is Valentine's Day supposed to be? Is it supposed to be a recognition of someone you love? And how do you? I mean, Hallmark made it a big deal, but I think that there's everybody's out there looking for love, and having trouble finding it, and there are all these apps that you can get that everybody lies on, and it's sort of like, do you really find a partner, or do you find somebody who lies as well as you do? I understand the desire for companionship, but how can you possibly feel that physicality, or is there a commonality, or is there an energetic synchronicity, big words, with another person unless you've experienced, being with them?
That's very true. That's a good point you make right there. Well, and nowadays too, I mean, if you look at Japan and other areas, they're really into artificial intelligence for companionship. So, nowadays there may not even be a partner, like a real person. It might just be some kind of an animated program, artificial intelligence related, just to keep people, from being lonely. But it doesn't mean that it's intimate or anything. It just means that there's something there to keep them company. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, they had all these kinds of robots for the elderly, for example. And I think that's where society's kind of getting in a weird space between digital worlds. So who knows? But to me, it just seems like everybody's made a paper mache when it comes to online dating and this, that, and the other. And I think that people should be very careful about that, what they're looking at, because you really have to look at people eye to eye, face to face, and get to know them and really understand who and what they are. And you're right, there's so many imposters, so many programs running in their personalities.
Well, and I've had a couple of people from LinkedIn contacting me, and it's, I'd like to get to know you better, and if I met this person in the grocery store and started talking to them, it would be one thing. But this is somebody that has seen my picture on my LinkedIn account and seen what my LinkedIn account has on it, and I'm not sure what it has on it anymore, to tell you the truth. But it's almost like that they're stalking. They're looking through things and saying, oh, this person looks like, they're hot or whatever, and I don't look hot. I just take that off the table. But it's sort of like there is and I have cats, so I don't need to have a person here. I have cats. They talk to me.
Right,
you have dogs,
kitties.
I think.
I have dogs and cats. I've got everything, except fish and birds.
Oh my gosh, you've covered all areas here. But that's it's sort of like, if you have love, if you're looking for the return of love, you have to be able to give love, and certainly you can give it to animals, and they're not going to betray you or use you or anything like that. And these days, you don't know. And I had a friend who was on social media, and I can't tell you the number of people that she, would connect with and then find that, they weren't exactly what she wanted, and and it felt almost dirty, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Well, there's something wrong. I don't like it either. I really don't. I don't resonate with that thing. The internet stuff. People meeting on the internet. I know some people have, and that's great and all, but it just doesn't ring for me.
No, nor for me. I think the last time I can remember standing in my garden in Middlebury, and I had been alone for at least 10 years, maybe longer. And I remember standing there saying, you know what? If the universe wants me to have a relationship, okay, but I don't need it because I'm totally blissful. So, and I'm talking out loud here to nobody, just, the universe, saying, well, if you want me to have a relationship, they're going to have to find me at the computer because I'm not going out looking. I refuse to go out looking. I'm not getting dressed up to go out looking. They'll have to find me on the radio show and connect with me that way because, and I figured that was safe, and like 3 months later, I had somebody on the show, and we were talking about his book, which was called, I think, In Focus, and it was it spoke of all of the UFO sightings that had been authenticated, and I was actually at one of them, and so I was having a lovely time talking to him, and somebody was in the chat room and saying, I'm an expert in the field, and yada, yada, and I kept thinking, good for you, I've got the author on it, and the author had to leave early, so I pulled the guy from the chat room in, and it was Patrick Cook, and we started to talk, and so I have our first date recorded, actually, and we talked for, afterwards he actually gave me his resume, and he said, I'm really not crazy, and I'd love to get to know you better, and I thought he's in California, this is about as safe as it could be, and we talked for 6, 7, 8 months, and we decided that there was definitely a connection, an intellectual connection, and I flew to San Francisco, and he picked me up with his van loaded with everything he owned and his 3 cats. Our first date was driving across country from San Francisco to Connecticut, and shortly. And 7 months later, we got married. But, it was exactly the way I put it out there. I said, I'm blissful. I'm fine. If this is it, I'm fine. Don't bother with me. Go bother somebody else because I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to, screw around, and I'm not going to waste time looking for somebody that maybe doesn't exist. And
right.
So, it was, I have not put that offer out again. I've basically said, I'm fine, you just go elsewhere.
But you do manifest quite well. That's a good manifestation. Exactly what you said.
It was spectacular. It was like, dang. I should have been a bit more specific on certain areas. If I knew you were making a checklist, I would have gone on a little more, but no. I mean, he was perfect, and we did Secrets of the Stones, and he unfortunately died a year and a half later after we got married. But it was a lovely relationship, and there was love because our focus was in the same direction. Metaphysical. He was very biblically oriented, and I was not, and I was metaphysically oriented, and he was not, but there was so much else that pulled it together that it made for very interesting conversations over dinner, for sure. But I think today people they have a need for that companionship, and if you have a need for the companionship, it means that you need to look into yourself a little more, that you need to find those qualities in yourself that you want to bring into resonance with the rest of you so that your magnetism will draw to you the kind of person that you want. You have to become the kind of person you want. And I think...
That makes a lot of sense.
I think that all of us being electromagnetic entities or avatars, whatever you want to call them, our bodies, that we attract to us exactly what we are. And when somebody says to me, I'm just attracting jerks, it's like, then maybe you got to look at yourself a little bit and find out what in yourself do we need to adjust to make you more whole, so that you can attract the kind of person you want. And
exactly.
I think I've insulted a couple of people, but if you're attracting people who are not whole, then there's something going on here. And one lady, it was so funny. She was doing the dating stuff, and she dated one guy, and when she met him, it turned out that he had a toupee, which didn't bother her any. But the next guy that she went out with was missing a leg, and the next guy she went out with was blind in one eye and had several fingers that were missing. And she said, "I'm not doing this anymore. I can't imagine how." I can't imagine what will come next. Somebody rolling up in a wheelchair with, the saline solution thing, dripping into his arm. She said, I have to work on myself because it's telling me there are pieces missing. I didn't think there were, but and she worked on herself for almost a year. And she said, I'm going back on the dating circle. I said, why don't you just give it 6 months and see what you just attract to yourself normally? And she met a perfect man for her.
Oh, that's good. But that makes more sense. Dating circuit doesn't sound right. Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Well, though, where else do they go? I mean, used to be they would go to bars. That's not exactly the best place to meet somebody, but you can. I tell people that your magnetism will draw somebody to you while you are in pursuit of your dreams.
Correct.
And if you're not in pursuit of your dreams, then there's something wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I met my second husband. I met him at the dojo. So martial arts. Yeah, and I had no anticipation of meeting anybody. So, but you're right. Find a common ground. Something like that where you're interested in something and you're having fun, and then you never know what happens. Meet somebody.
Well, and I know I have a young guy who's he's divorced and he has an 8-year-old or 10-year-old, I forget. And he's trying to find someone, and he's a very nice-looking, very successful young man. And he said, I don't know where to meet people because I'm just not meeting anybody. And I said, well, let's do yoga. And he said, oh, yeah, and those hot little tights. I said, yeah, right, do yoga, but, that's not your focus. I said, and do ballroom dancing. And he said, that's nice. Just old people. And I said, I promise you, first of all, you will be very welcome because you're good looking. You have no sense of rhythm, but that doesn't matter. And I said, once you're trying to learn a new task, like ballroom dancing, if you keep at it, yes, you will be pushing little old ladies, your mother's age and my age, around the dance floor. But the better you get, the further you go, the younger your partners will get, and you may well meet somebody who's spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pushing little old ladies around as we speak, I think. But but he's giving it a try. He said, I'll give it 6 months. I said, 6 months should do it. Once a week, 6 months. I said, and I think he talked a friend into going with him. I said, I trust me. You will meet somebody who has a love of music and rhythm, and at some point you will meet somebody that you're really going to start talking to. But you got to give it a chance.
That's good advice.
Yeah, this is the one that I told him when he was in college that I saw him at the Great Wall in China in May, and he was still in school, and he asked me if I had taken my medications, and I said, just put it in your hat and hang on to it. And in February, I think he was about to graduate. They were told that they had to write a thesis or go on the trip that had been planned for the senior class or whatever. And he said, I don't care where it is, I'm going. He went to China. In May, he was on the Great Wall of China. That's one of my fun stories. But
Wow.
as far as love goes, I think that we have made the word so hackneyed that it doesn't mean that much anymore.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah, I
very
totally
sad.
agree. Mhm. Yeah, it's been co-opted to some degree. All words have. I think it's not just even the word love. It's everything. It seems like in different types of belief systems, same thing. But then it's like I said, it loses its value and its luster when it's just used generically. So,
Yeah,
and I think
mean,
they do that to make somebody feel secure sometimes. And even if it's not true, to tell them they love them, to make that other person feel secure.
but that's lying. That's terrible.
Well, yeah, but
think,
I think that they do it all the time. That's just my impression. Maybe not everybody, but I think they'll just say anything. I shouldn't be so jaded. But I am.
Well, you're an old lady. What the hell do you?
I'm an old lady.
I think at one point in my life when I was doing the spiritual work, the element of love was, just so juicy. It was wonderful. And then I started to really look at it, and I started to realize that, I hadn't really looked at me and what was I doing with my life and where was I taking it. And it wasn't so much that it wasn't so much that it was a career as much as it was the development of my own spiritual energies and things like that. And those everybody can work on. That doesn't cost you any money. And I found I got very excited about the mystical field, and the more I got involved in the mystical field and the spirituality, the more I began to realize that I could be alone and not be lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are people that just need to have someone there, and if that's the case, I mean, be aware of it, work on it, but be aware of what it is your needs are, so that you don't get yourself into a situation that is uncomfortable, that at some point you're going to have to walk away from.
Mhm. Right. That could be a very bad
part.
situation. Yeah, I think so. But some people get codependent, even if in abusive relationships, for example. I think that people just want they just want to have companionship, and they'll put up with an awful lot just to keep that companionship. And I'd be like, no way. But a lot of people would subscribe to things like that. And at that point, yeah, you have to kind of really do some deep work and shadow. I'd say shadow the self to some degree, see what's really happening there, because you're never alone, really. We're always connected, and especially once you start doing the spiritual work, you have all these vast aspects of yourself that are so complete. And you were talking about bliss. Yeah, I remember bliss too. When I was single, I always loved being blissful and happy, and I was always optimistic. This was when I was younger, but I didn't feel the need to have to be in a relationship or be married or have a partner at that time in my life. I was just doing my spiritual work, and it was wonderful.
What drew you into the physic, the psychic stuff, the part that was almost abusive to you? How did you get sucked into that? Was that a matter of feeling that it was going to give you something, or was it just you weren't paying attention and there you were?
The technology, the induction thing, that happened in 2004, which was, I was married at the time. So that was, it was just experimental induction. I mean, they literally just extracted me out of my house with a covert technology, and that took my whole life into another universe, so to speak. I mean, there was so much going on with that. But prior to that, I had been doing all kinds of good spiritual work. And no, I wasn't leaving any, perimeters open where I was accessible or anything. I was fulfilled and I was happy. It seemed like my life was just perfect, and then that happened. So it's interesting. But that happened in 2004. But prior to that, I've always had that psychic energy. And I remember just doing spiritual work and taking classes and getting initiations and then doing more healing work. And you know how it goes. You just go down these cycles and progressions, and it just becomes so blissful and peaceful. And the more you do the work, the more happy you get. I mean, it was like that for me anyway. I was really, really happy. And I never thought about a relationship, really. I was kind of oblivious almost to people and men. And, You know, even if they flirt with me, I really didn't get it. You know, it's kind of one of those that would just kind of go over my head, you know, that kind of thing. So, of course, I was back in the day when I was younger. But, you know, you're just happy and you talk to everybody and you don't realize when they're flirting. So that kind of thing. But, yeah, it's interesting. Very, very interesting to look at those timelines.
Because, you know, I so far I haven't gotten into trouble with the spiritual stuff. It's always been really, really cool. Hard work sometimes, but very cool and very exciting. And you know, I look at and I know everybody's different, so you can't compare yourself to anybody else. Not really. And it's sort of like I think at some point in time, often during your life, you come up to the point where you say, well, who am I and why am I here? And, you know, was I meant to be alone? Was I meant to share with someone else? Was I meant to have a partner? And, you know, I think that, at least for me, I guess not. I mean, I have cats. I'll always have a cat or two. They're, you know, the only messy part about a cat is the litter box. So, you know, and they may argue with me, but I always win. So, you know, it's kind of like, I think coming to terms and understanding what your needs are. I think at a certain time in my life, I really felt I needed someone, and I tried on a lot of someones, and I found that nobody fit, and so I stopped looking and just kept going with my own stuff. And I literally, as I look back at the people that I've been in relationship with, almost every single one of them was, it felt like it was an accident. You know, I had a boat and met somebody at the marina, or I was doing Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship, and I met another man who was who actually I had a relationship with for 12 years on and off. So, you know, every relationship I've had has come almost out of the blue, without me looking for it. You know, were they all perfect? Oh, goodness, no. But I learned from them all, and you know, I only married a couple of them. But as I look back now, I think, you know, I had an insecurity and needed to have the marriage. It was my insecurity that got me into trouble. If I had not been insecure, I would have had a relationship that I could walk away from when I needed to and not go through all of the legal stuff that went on. You know, it was not pleasant. So, and I don't know if that's age or if it's, you know, the metaphysical and the spiritual world gave me enough strength and confidence to not need to have that kind of connection, so that I could be with people and then drift away if that was appropriate. And if anything, as far as, you know, advice to anyone, listening, it's take care of yourself. You know, have a relationship with yourself first. Figure out what it is that you need to work on and keep working on it. And if there's somebody else there while you're working on it, that's great. That's wonderful. But don't get locked into a box. Make sure that they are working on their own stuff too, because you want to be able to share the growth. And I mean, I've been with people who were excited about something they had done or created or whatever, and I didn't understand a word of what they were saying, but I certainly could celebrate with their excitement. And you know, at some point, you know, they did the same with me, so that it was really, you know, a wonderful partnership. So I'm wondering, are we looking for partners or are we looking for lovers?
Well, that's a good question too, because partners is more like, companionship, almost like a training buddy, that kind of thing. And then the other is a little more, that's more intimate. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think people get lonely. I think it's nice to be able to bounce information off of someone. And, I think you're right though. Take care of yourself first and don't overextend your energy into somebody else or live precariously through them. That's my 2 cents on that. But yeah, I think a lot of people are looking for love for the wrong reasons for it, perhaps. But I see a lot of people that are lonely these days. And like you said, we were talking about readings and doing readings. And, yeah, love comes up a lot. Relationships comes up a lot. And, we can manifest anything. If they really want something, they can certainly get it. You don't have to do any magic spell to get somebody. And I don't think that's a good idea anyway, because that could blow up. So, just putting whatever you want out to the universe and just going for it. But I think that when you find a common ground, whether it's a hobby or something you really love to do and something you have a passion for, I think you'll find the right person. That's just my own 2 cents on that. Someone will show up.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't really answer your question. but
well, that's all right. I think that there are so many people out there that are at that time and place in life where, late 20s, 30s, 40s, in there, where they feel that they have to find a partner. And no, you don't. But you can want one. That's okay. But the thing is, it should not be a need. It should be it should be a mutual attraction, a magnetic attraction, and it's kind of like don't confuse passion with love, because
right.
One is physical and one is emotional.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people do that too.
Oh yeah. And it's okay with getting your needs met. There's nothing wrong with that. But understand that if that's what it is, that's what it is, and don't try to make it something it's not. And I think often that happens, that there is a chemical reaction, which is really cool, but there's no emotion connected to it. And
right.
And women, sorry, but women tend to attribute that to the emotion, and it's not. It's a physical thing. It's definitely it's passion, and it's physical, and there's nothing wrong with it. But that doesn't say there's love there. And if what you're looking for is love, and you can't trade it. I know lots of people who and they're young girls, actually. Mostly it's young girls who think that if someone has sex with them that they love them. And
oh no.
Oh yeah.
They need a class on that.
And there's nothing further from the truth, and yet that's how they define love. You want to have sex with me? That means you love me. So, I'll have your baby and whatever. But so you have to take your time, and you have to figure out just where are the emotions coming from. I mean, the physical is certainly a part of all of it, but it's the physical is what attracted men to women way back when they had to populate the earth. And they never turned that nozzle off, so to speak, when we had population down pat, and there was more to life than just surviving. And now that compulsion to procreate is there, but it's not connected to love. So
right.
It's important to define stuff, and you can't just sit down with somebody and say, okay, let's define this relationship. Is it passionate? Is it love? Is it caring? Is it what do we have here? And somebody can look at you, with a blank stare and say, what the devil are you talking about? So maybe the conversation is something one has to have with oneself. What am I feeling?
Mm-hmm.
What does this look like for me? And is my feeling just a chemical one? Is it a friendship one? Is it, just where am I? And not be swept away by a physical emotion that is very real and very fun to satisfy. But if you're more of a person, you want to go deeper into, is there a mutual understanding? Are there mutual goals? Do the directions that they want to go in life correspond with yours? There's a whole checklist, and happily I can't rattle it off for you because I would hate anybody, have a checklist in a relationship and say, well, you only got 4 out of 5, so, you don't count. But it's important to take a lot of things into consideration. And I think today is such a scary time with everything that's going on with pandemics, with wars, with everything that's going on is a frightening aspect of life these days. Even buying a dozen eggs, is traumatic to some. So, when it comes to something that doesn't cost money, but it costs you time and energy, and it costs you tears if you've gauged yourself right or inappropriately, not appropriately. So it's important to take the time and by yourself and say, okay, so what are the good points? What are the bad points? Can I live with these? Is this something that I would want to change with this person? And you can't change another person. That's not, you just can't do it. You can try, but you can't do it. And I think there's a lot of, what do they call it, the go to Jesus moment. Have a go to Jesus moment with yourself and be honest. And if you find yourself saying, well, I can put up with this and I can put up with this and I can put up with this, then you're in a bad space and you should back out slowly. I tell everybody, I tell everybody you should have a red flag list that you carry in your wallet at all times. This is to the single people. And if these are things that are absolute no-brainers for you, that there is no way you're going to change, that it is an absolute red flag, if you have a red flag, walk away. And an example, a red flag for me would be someone who doesn't like pets. I'm always going to have a pet. A red flag for me is someone who smokes. Can't abide by that. I have sinus problems anyhow. I don't need more. I mean, those are the two big ones for me. But everybody has red flags, and I would suggest that most people have at least 5 red flags, and they should have their red flags written down in a list in their wallet so that when they meet somebody and they think, oh, this guy is just perfect for me, take out your red flag list. And if there's one red flag, walk away.
You should write it. That's a book. That's a book right there, Barbara. You know it is, and I know it is. Maybe the red flag book.
Yeah,
no, it is true.
Seriously.
It really is something people should look at. And then instead of nitpicking later on, they can just get on their checklist.
Yeah. I mean, there are obnoxious things that somebody could do that it would not flushing the toilet.
Ugh.
Definitely a red
You're
flag
right.
for me.
No, I agree with you on that one.
I mean, I can live with the seat up or down. That I can handle, but not flushing. Not a good thing. So really
and
spend
addiction
time.
issues
Maybe
too. That's a red flag.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
So it's sort of like if you have your red flags and they're in your wallet, and I laminate it so that you can't change it once you've actually got your red flag list, and just have it with you at all times. And when you meet somebody that you're just wiping the drool off your chin because they're just so spectacular, take out that damn list. And if there is one red flag, you walk away, because I promise you that red flag will become a cancer.
Agreed. That's great advice.
And it really is. It only took me 78 years to get here.
Well, but you know what? It's very wise. It'll save people a lot of grief later on.
I know a lot of women, that I've given that advice to, and I will see them 5-6 years later, and every one of them will take out their wallet and show a laminated thing with at least 5. Sometimes they got carried away, but at least 5 red flags. And they've said, This has saved me so much grief. It's not been easy, but it saved me grief.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that I would like to have in a person, like a good sense of humor, but, a good sense of humor would be important. To live with me, you'd have to have one. But but the red flag list, oh my goodness, it's fine with being friends with those people. Just don't get involved.
Right.
I have several people that I speak with on a semi-regular basis that, they check every damn red flag I ever had. So there's never been a relationship, but strangely there's a friendship. So, just make sure you put your priorities where they are, because at some point in time, you want something that is as valuable as you are to come into your life.
Exactly.
And
great advice.
I mean, we deserve it. We've worked real hard to get to where we are, and we deserve to have a person who has worked hard on themselves too. Now, they may be a slob. They may, I can live with a slob. That's, but
a slob?
it's sort of.
I don't know about that. I've been there before where I did everything and they didn't do anything. So.
All right, that may be a red flag for you.
Yeah, I mean, I did the lawn, I did the laundry, I did everything. Cleaned the fish tanks, took care of the animals, and I like half and half. It'd be nice to have somebody actually, at least help a little bit. That'd be good.
Yeah. But it's kind of like that's what handymen are for. That's what gardeners are for.
Right.
You can't do it. I mean, I had huge gardens, and I can't do huge gardens anymore. But I have pots, and there are lots of ways of filling one's needs. I have a list of stuff that needs to be done, and at some point I will call a handyman, and I will pay the handyman, and I will get it done. And I won't have had to put out anything to get it except cash, which is fine.
Yep. I think that's wise, too. Yeah, I like the handyman, too.
Oh, jeez, yes. But so as far as relationship goes, there are lots of ways to have a full, rich life. And not have the pain and anxiety that goes out. And you don't have to be lonely. You just don't have to be. And, there are lots of ways of filling that gap if you feel there is one. But as far as getting a relationship, relationships are sacred as far as I'm concerned. And if it's a good relationship, it's absolutely sacred, because it isn't just physical; it's emotional and mental. It's the whole thing, and I think that we deserve to have those kinds of relationships, but they don't necessarily have to be physical. And I'm not saying that the physical is bad, because the physical isn't. It's great, but you don't want to have to pay for it by compromising your own value systems.
Very true.
And for heaven's sakes, everybody should do a red flag list, even men. I mean, I would imagine there are lots of red flags for men, although I almost said something very, very bad about men. Men are great. I love men, but I'm sure they have red flags too.
Oh, I'm sure. Sure, there are things that get under their skin.
Oh, yeah. But you know,
it's not easy
I
to
think,
live with anybody. I mean, even if you're not in a relationship, I mean, roommates, housemates. I could never live with housemates. No way. You know. So
yeah,
I don't know.
no, it's true.
That's a whole different orbit right there.
If you are living with someone else, that is a type of relationship, and red flags should apply to that as well. I know smoking is a big one with me because my mother smoked my whole life, and I just couldn't handle the smoke. So when it came to people living with me or being in relationship with me, I can't handle the smoke. I just can't.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
And when she was 65, she had a heart. Well, yeah, and when she was 65, she had a heart attack, and she was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And when she came home, she walked into the house and she said, "Oh my God, what's that awful smell?" And I said, "That would be you." And
wow.
She never smoked again. We had to paint the whole house. We had to get new furniture. We had to either dry clean or wash like heck any of the clothing or anything. It took us weeks and weeks and weeks to get the house so that it smelled right again. So,
holy cow.
Oh, she was a heavy smoker. And
yeah, a lot of people really are addicted to that.
And they don't realize, when Patrick moved in, before he moved in, I said, "Do you smoke?" And he said, "No." And is that a problem? And I said, smoking would be a problem for me. It would be a deal breaker, absolutely. And apparently he was still smoking. And a week before I flew to San Francisco to pick him up, he stopped smoking.
Wow.
And when he moved in, he had, he brought a lot of his stuff with him. And the cleaning lady said to me, "He was a heavy smoker." I said, "I don't think so." And she said, "All of the glass on everything that he has hung up has nicotine on it. He was a heavy smoker." And I finally confronted him and I said, when did you stop smoking? And he said, "A week before you came out."
Wow.
Yeah. He definitely, it was a deal breaker for me. There was absolutely, it was a, screeching halt to everything. I couldn't handle it, and he did not smoke, and he never smoked again.
Excellent.
Of course, he died, but
well, cigarettes probably keeping him alive. Who knows?
Well, no,
people smoke cigars in their 90s, and they live forever. Go ahead.
Do they really inhale cigars, or do they just puff on them?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think you're right. I think they just puff on them, don't they?
I don't know either.
I have no idea. Maybe they just look cool with brandy.
Yeah. That could be. Well, what do you think society is changing? Do you think the aspect of relationship is changing?
I do. I think it's. I don't think there's a lot of depth in relationships anymore. Just my observation. I think it's more just kind of generic. Quite honestly, I don't think they understand. The new generations really get what love is. So once again, it's just attraction, maybe on a biochemical level, and then, just generic relationships, generic sex. They say they love each other, but I find that I think it's a different kind of waveform when it comes down to the new societies of today. And I don't see a lot of romantic energy.
Do you think a lot of it is just survival? 2 incomes makes you able to live better?
Yeah, that too. I think that's definitely right because it certainly is easier to have a partner. Definitely. No doubt about that financially. So that would definitely take the edge off of anything. It's easier for investments, this, that, and the other. It's hard for single people, unless you're making a very good living to make it, in my opinion, anyway. So that could be part of it as well.
Well, I see all these kids coming out of college and especially with the prices of everything today, I mean, how can anybody out of college really live independently?
Right.
I mean, rents are horrific. Food is awful. Gas is awful. The only way I can see people either going back with your parents, which I did, or find someone who is in the same place. I know Jeannie's son has a roommate. You know, they are both struggling to get careers going, so there's a roommate there, and it enables them to have their independence without being dependent upon family, but they have their independence. But it's like I can't imagine. I have 2 grandchildren. Thomas is, I think, finishing his sophomore year, and Jenna has another year before she goes to college too. So John will have 2 in college at the same time. And
wow,
I wonder, yeah. You're going to tighten his belt. And so, you know, I do wonder, what does life hold for them when they, you know, at this point they're still living at home and, you know, their parents are doing a great job with them. But what will they do when they get out of school? I mean, are they going to be able to be independent, or will they move back home with their parents, you know, which is something they may do.
That's possible. So, you know, they have a lot of people who are minimalists now. That's the big thing now, the minimalist, or they just don't have anything. They don't want possessions. They live very, I don't know how you would call it. Well, like, for example, people like living in their vans now. They buy these really nice vans, and they literally live in them instead of a home. And these are people that are making a pretty good income, a lot of them are, and they just literally want to have hardly any expenses and live in their vans and, you know, kind of just travel around. So that's another thing that's going on that's kind of trending.
I knew a guy a long time ago, and he lived with his family, but he prided himself on the fact that everything he owned literally would fit into a paper bag.
Wow.
And he was a very nice person, but strange, but nice. And I remember he had a cool jacket shirt that he wore. It was flannel and it had quilted stuff in it. It was really cool. And he couldn't remember where he got it. And I said, well, when you're done with it and you don't want to have it anymore, I would love to have it. And he took it off and gave it to me. He literally gave me the shirt off his back. And I said, well, let me pay you for it. And he said, no, just it's yours. I'll get something else somewhere else. And he had no attachment to anything that he owned.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's very liberating.
I lost track of,
you know?
Yeah.
I kind of like that. Actually, the older I get, the less I want stuff. So I get it. I totally understand.
Well, I made very sure I never liked anything that he had on his body after that because I was afraid he'd give it to me. So he lived with his family, and they owned an orchard and they made apple cider. So
oh, nice.
And he worked for the family business. So it was really kind of cool. But you know, I when you see all of these tent cities, when you see all of these, you know, RVs and stuff like that parked along the road where people are becoming nomads, actually.
Yep.
I mean, if you could afford the gas to be living like that next to the road, I mean, in a way, that's kind of cool. But I don't think I could stand that, you know, year round. But I mean, the tent cities
it's harder with animals too. Oh, I agree with you. You don't. I mean, a lot of the time, a lot of those people have addiction issues and drug issues, and that's what we're looking at. It's just not like they're happy hippies, you know, and everybody's kind and compassionate. I think there's a lot of sketchy, weird going on, but you know, I think the biggest problem. I wouldn't mind living in a van at some point. I mean, I thought about it, but I have animals and I have my own way of doing things, and I don't think that would be practical. And I'm not willing to get rid of my animals, so. I can't imagine living in a hippy-dippy van with all my animals, I guess. It's just not going to work. So, big safeguard in the window, yeah, that'll be good.
Are you Susan Shumsky. Are you familiar with her?
Yeah, her name sounds familiar.
She has written a ton of books on meditation.
Mhm.
Ton of them. And I met her, 30-some years ago. And 30-some years ago, she traveled around. At the time, she had an Airstream. And she lived in the Airstream, and she just drove it to wherever she was going to do workshops or whatever. I ran into her again maybe 10, 15, 20 years later, and she was still in an RV. And as far as I know, she still lives in an RV that she travels around the country in. And
wow,
that's her home. And she goes to states where it's warm in the summer, in the winter time, and then she goes back up north and does stuff like that. She runs cruises that are spiritually oriented and stuff like that. And she has no permanent residence. She is absolutely a nomad, and she loves it.
Yeah, I've looked that up on the internet, especially some YouTube channels. There's some really cool people out there doing that. And that's exactly what they do. They live in, like, Arizona, then they go other places, depending on the year and the time of year. But they seem extremely happy, carefree. Their spirits are very high, high energy. And I find that it takes a load off. I think, honestly, it does remove all the baggage, all the possessions and all the other stuff.
Well, she's written a ton of books. She works conferences. She's lectures. She does a whole bunch of stuff, but all from her RV. And
wow,
she's just a remarkable person. And actually, I went to a workshop when I met her the very first time, and it goes back many decades. She was doing a workshop, and I forget what the workshop was about. It was an evening lecture thing. And somebody asked her a question as to how do you tell if you've had, in a workshop or even a reading, how can you tell if you've had a genuine spiritual experience? And she said, that's really easy. If as you leave, you are feeling joyful and energized, it's been spiritual. If you're tired and you just want to go home and go to bed, it was not spiritual. And I have used that gauge for my entire life, and it's absolutely 100% true.
That makes sense.
I wish I could take credit for it, but usually if I'd love to take credit for it, but I actually remember who said this, so I give her credit for it. If you've been and a lot of the shows we do, I can't sleep after we've been on the air talking for 2 hours. I'm too hyped up. And
I know you get all wound up. In a good way.
You're always
very
wound.
Productive.
Yeah, well,
so are you.
Absolutely.
I feel even when I feel I'm low energy, I'm not. But you're always high energy and clear too. You're always good.
We're talking about spiritual stuff. We're actually putting spiritual stuff out there, and hopefully, actually, we stayed on topic so long tonight. I'm so proud of us.
I am too, and you kept us on track. Congratulations, the navigator.
Well,
that's great.
No, I think it's
a good topic to address.
Well, and so many people today are looking for someone to complete them, which is, not appropriate at all. But looking for someone to share their life with, looking for someone to be able to talk to intelligently, or and it's a matter of that's a good thing to want, but it shouldn't be a need. It should be a want, and it's sort of like that person who was talking about having to, how to save money. You go of the, do I want this or do I need this? and if you want it, you have to put it down, and if you need it, you can buy it. And but I cheat. I really want it, but I'm going to say I need it because
right.
I cheat. There are moments
when you can spoil yourself
you
sometime, right?
Absolutely. I really believe I need this. I need this badly. Mm-hmm. And of course, the next day I don't need it as badly. So it's kind of like sometimes I try to put things off for a day just to see if the need lasts.
Right. 24 hours later, you still have this itch to get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There are those moments, but it's sort of like we have to be honest with ourselves, and it's I can pick up the phone anytime and call people all over the world and have a lovely chat. We don't need to say I wish I had somebody I could talk to, yada yada. You know enough people, and so do I, that we can wake somebody up almost anywhere.
Especially with a radio show.
Absolutely. Well, and that's another thing. I have found that do I have a burning desire to say something or become profound? I can always create a blog talk show and get on the air and talk myself blue in the face and make it a private show so it never gets posted, but I've had a chance to really get it out of my system so I can go to bed. So that's one of the good things about Blog Talk Radio. It's a good place to store stuff and go back and delete it when I'm done with my tirade.
That's great.
Well, you've got 3 shows. You do the KCOR show. You do the one on Freedom Slips, and you do the one here. So you've got shows going on all over the place too.
I do. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I don't get tired of doing it. Sometimes I feel a little like I need a break, but most of the time I'm doing just fine. I look forward to interviewing, and I certainly look forward to this show with you. It's always fun. Yeah, it's nice. It's just I realize that Friday and Saturday nights I literally have always been dedicated to doing the radio shows. So talk about no social life, right? Like 10 years on one of the stations. So every Saturday night. Yep.
Well, this show's been on the air for 14 years now.
That's wonderful. Wow, I can't believe it's been on that long.
Yeah, neither can I.
It flies,
Yeah. I started out as a co-host for a guy called Walks with Thunder. And he did 2 shows. He did a Monday night show and a Wednesday night show, and I was his co-host on one of the shows, and Mary Peeler was the co-host on the other show. And we had a meeting, the 3 of us, and he wanted us to help him find guests, but they had to be nice-looking women with long blonde hair, and beautiful. And he started to hit on one of us, and I stopped him and I said, "You do realize that your 2 co-hosts are both grandmothers?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm old enough to be your mother, I think, and so is Mary. So hitting on us is probably one of the stupidest things you've ever done." And he said, "I'll take care of finding the guests." I said, "That's a good idea because we're not going to go hunting for you. So you just better do it yourself."
Good for you.
I mean, it was so funny because he hadn't realized it because, he heard our voices and, we were both psychic, so we filled that need in his show. And he didn't realize that we were old enough to be his mother.
That's so funny.
It really was. He is no longer on the air.
It's good you called him out anyway. Oh, he's not.
Well, yeah, he just didn't realize that we were not our young voices. Well, I mean, at the time we were a lot younger. I mean, that was almost 20 years ago. So, yeah, We were in our 40s, early 50s, whatever. But that was a fun show to do. And then my show was on after his show because I figured I'll just scoop up his audience, and that's how Nightlight started.
Wow,
so,
that's awesome.
It was a long time ago.
That's pretty
when
cool.
did you get the urge to do, or how did you start in? How did you start in the radio?
With the radio? It was at Revolution Radio. I think it's just because I got tired of doing interviews all the time, and I decided I wanted to start doing interviews with people. Instead, I wanted to be the interviewer. Mm-hmm. So an opportunity opened up for Revolution Radio over there with Nighthawk, and and Lorian Fenton kind of said, you should come over and do a show. And I was like, well, I never saw myself doing radio. So funny. But I managed to, she actually proposed it to Nighthawk, and I remember him. He was really funny, and he passed away. But what was funny about him, he's like, oh, she's into this, and she's a witch, and she's this. It's like he's having a breakdown. But he did give me a slot, and it was Ravenstar's Witching Hour, and I've been on it ever since. That was the first show I started, and then I went over to Dark Matter Digital Network. That was Art Bell's network for hyperspace. That's where that was born. And that was a real privilege to do that because Keith Rowland was my producer at the time, and, he was Art's producer. So it was really cool, and I really liked the professionalism over there. And then from that point, I went to K-Core with hyperspace. So it was born on Dark Matter, though, which is really nice.
Wow.
But, and then from there, it's just like the whole thing is it just flows. And it's amazing how Spirit puts you on these paths of just doing things you thought you'd never do. And that's one of them. That's one thing I never saw myself doing on the timeline, ever, is radio. So that's been interesting.
Neither did
I. It's been an interesting journey. Yeah.
It was. I'll never forget. And 14, 15 years ago, somebody in one of the workshops I was in Connecticut got a radio show and asked me if I would come on their radio show, and I said, well, where's the studio? And they said, oh, you just do it on your telephone. And I said, you're kidding me. And she said, no. And so I called in and I did the radio show with them, and I thought, well, that was fun. And so the next time I saw her, I said, can I come and watch you do a show? And she said, sure. And I went over and I watched them do a show. And as I was leaving, I said, I could do that. and that's how Nightlight started. And
nice.
it was. I left all of the early shows up on Blog Talk, just so people can listen to see how awful the first shows were, and how that they have evolved over time. I literally scripted 2 hours of it. And because I wasn't sure anybody would, I wasn't sure anybody would call in, for a reading. So I had to have something that would fill the time. And then I talked Jeannie into being my co-producer, so she would do the answering of the phones and, telling me who was where and stuff like that. And we did it for years and years and years and years and years. And so it was amazing. And I mean, I would go back and do it all over again because it has been an amazing learning experience for me. And then when I got tired of doing readings, I just thought, well, let me just interview authors. And that has been an education like none other. It has been so profound. I mean, I swear it's my PhD. I find someone... If I find someone whose work I really enjoy, I read their book, and then I talk them into doing a show so they can tutor me for 2 hours, and, and I get it free.
Yeah. And the audience
Definitely.
does, too. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely been an adventure. And, I think the fact that... you get hooked in. I don't like video. I don't like, I have a ton of shows that I'm going to be doing, and they all, have Skype or Zoom or something.
I know.
I hate video.
I don't
first
care
of all,
for it either.
At first I don't like the way I look anyhow. I don't like looking at me, looking back at me, and
I don't like myself in film either. I don't think anybody does.
And I don't like it when you can see what other people are doing, and in some shows that I've done, and with a guest, they were eating, their lunch or something while they were talking to me. I've been on shows.
That's so not right.
Chris of Curious Times had somebody on once who literally was just fixing her hair and putting makeup on, and it was like, at least to my mind, radio is a better medium than video.
Agreed.
Because
I totally agree.
Because they're hearing your voice and creating pictures in their own mind. They are listening. And if you give them a video, they're looking at what's hanging on the wall behind you, or the cat that's walking across the desk, or whatever. And it just to me is it's not as intimate as my voice being out there saying something that they're listening to.
I agree.
And so I will. As of this moment, I have absolutely no intention of ever going video. And you have to get dressed for these shows. You have to actually.
Oh, I don't.
Well, not this one, no. But if there's
a
video,
even video, right? I don't though. I've done video before, and I'll look nice, but I don't dress up for that. And honestly, I can't stand video either. I always look weird on video, and I can look at myself in the mirror and say I don't look so bad, and then I look at my video like, what happened? It looks crappy.
Yeah, who is that person? And
I don't. It's like, what happened? Yeah, it's just, but I think they do it for extra ratings. But honestly, I think that they get better ratings without the video. Just my 2 cents. And I think that's why Art Bell really liked the audio only. I think he had a point. There's something more mysterious about a voice behind a radio, a microphone.
And I will bet you money that I always look better in their mind's eye than I do when I'm on camera.
Well, I'm sure everybody does, but we're our own worst critics. You know that. And as I get older, the less I want to be seen. I'll tell you right now. It's not like I age bad or anything. I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. You don't need to see what I look like. Yeah. When
I did a reset of my website, I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was probably about 10 years ago. Everybody said, "Oh, you have to put your picture on the website. You have to. You just have to." And so reluctantly, somebody gave me the name of a good photographer, and I made an appointment, and I went, and they posed me, and they posed me, and they posed me, and they showed me all the pictures they had taken, and I said, "That's not me." And they said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Nope, that's not me." I said, "You have me frozen in time, and I am not frozen in time. I am animated." And I said, I know we're going beyond the time that we have set, and I'll pay you extra time, but I said, let me talk to you about any topic you want, and let me react to it and take pictures while I'm talking. And that's what they did, and they got great pictures.
Well, that's awesome.
And the reality is I am animated, and the pictures they took were not. They were frozen. They made me look stiff. And so when I was fooling around with them and stuff like that, and they took the pictures, and they looked at them, and they said, "Oh, my God, it looks like a whole other person." And I said, "Well, that's me." And so I use those pictures, and those are the pictures that I use. And I will never age because I'm never using another picture ever.
There you go. I haven't changed my pictures up either. I still have old pictures on my website. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the
I like
thing
those
is,
on yours.
You find a picture that you really like, and that you should stick with it, and never get old. Never get old.
Right. Oh, I totally agree with that. I totally agree. Yeah. Selfies and all these people that constantly take pictures of themselves. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't either.
No, I don't either. And yet, those people that are constantly taking pictures of themselves are really good-looking people. I mean, if you've got a
Maybe
good
that's
image,
why they do it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm pretty. Look at me. 2 seconds later, look at me again. It's like, what?
No, it's funny because I think that there are some people that just don't take a good picture. And I'm one of them.
Yeah, me too.
Welcome to my club.
Dim the lights. It has to be lighting and, just kind of a goth-looking atmosphere for it to highlight my face. I mean, sometimes you can get, if you get the lighting right, I look okay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there are times when I think I really look pretty good, and I look at the picture and it's like, oh, why did somebody not stop me from walking out with that on? It's and I take pictures with my grandchildren, but when you see me in a family pictures, I'm all of 5 foot. My granddaughter is 5'8". My grandson and son are both 6'4", and my daughter-in-law is 5'9", and I'm the hobbit in the picture. I mean, and I said to them at one point, you've got to let me stand on something so that at least my head is above your armpit. This is ridiculous.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
that's cute.
Somebody said to me when they looked at me and John, and they said, well, he's so big. And I said, well, trust me, when he was born, he was much smaller. But,
right.
I don't know where all the height came from, but it was not my side of the family, clearly.
It's funny.
But no, I just think that our concept of ourselves and how we see ourselves is always so much different from how other people see us. And it's kind of, I have mirrors around here, and I look at them every now and then, and it's like, that's not me.
Oh, I don't look at my mirrors too much. I use them for feng shui mainly. So.
Actually, I've heard it said that you shouldn't really look in the mirror. You should look in a mirror's reflection of the mirror gives you a better vision of what you actually look like.
Oh, that's interesting.
So and I'm wondering. Well, it does. It's sort of like, and like when I do some of these interviews, the camera's on, and I look at me and I think, that doesn't look like me. And then I think, well, that's okay. That's that person, and I'm fine because I'm not that person. And it's just, I don't know. I think that there is a certain amount of ego going on with people who are doing video as well.
Oh, there is. They use filters too. You know that, Barbara. Some of these women out there look really pretty, like they've had plastic surgery, and I'm like, wow, you look so good. I'm using a filter. I'm like, oh, okay. So, and that goes for anything else with the selfies, by the way. Everybody looks flawless, and, you can do so much with the face now through all this little tech and apps and this, that, and the other, that half the time it's not the same person, that they show a picture on themselves, and then you see them in person, it's not even close, because they've done all this modification with filters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's even worse. At least I take a bad picture. People know what to expect. I don't have any expectations, and if I look better in person, that's even better, right? But, yeah.
No, I hate I hate the video stuff, but part of it is that, I want my words to mean more than people evaluating how I look or how my house looks behind me.
And yeah, exactly. And they do. There's a peanut gallery that just, picks people apart. And I have nothing, like I that doesn't affect me. Stuff like that doesn't affect me. But it is interesting. They get sidetracked by the visuals instead of listening to the message.
Mhm. Yeah, and at Curious Times, Chris had somebody who literally, when she co-hosted the show or hosted the show, at one point she was laying in bed eating, and it was like, oh, please.
That's disgusting. That's so not professional. I can't believe that's even happening.
But the cool thing is, anybody can do this and do. So I know at one point I did a show with, I forget. I called them the basement people because it looked like they were broadcasting from their basement, but it turns out they weren't. But it looked like it, and it was kind of like. Afterwards, I said, "Well, this is a really good example of anybody can do a radio show."
Yep, there you go. And unfortunately, it kind of watered down the whole area genre when it comes down to alternative media doing that sort of thing. Because it's true, anybody and their mother can do it, but not everybody's a professional when it comes down to it.
That's true.
You know, being professional on air, on radio, that sort of thing.
But look, you can even do Facebook. You know, apparently there's a way of broadcasting on Facebook. So, I mean, it's out there for anybody that wants to do it. And I think that's a good thing. Especially with the pandemic, how else do you get out there? How else do you put yourself out there? How else do you get, have your message, and I would think everybody who does a radio show has a message of some sort that they want to get out there to the rest of humanity. And it's a wonderful way of doing things, and yet now they're starting to censor. And I even had one of my shows with Gary Wayne taken down. Gary Wayne of all people.
Yeah, he's good.
They censored it because it was on the virus, and
brother.
So it was my fault. I used a graphic of the virus. If I had not, the show would have been all right. And I'm thinking seriously of going back and getting it, changing the graphic, and re-putting the show up.
Well, you can. Yeah. Why not? It's probably fine, yeah.
Well, they'd probably censor it again.
Well, sometimes there's little trolls out there that will literally flag your files and flag your videos. I had a few haters out there that were just nasty people. Actually, they work for the government, and they literally flagged a few of my. Then there was nothing wrong with my videos at all, and they flagged a couple to a point where they actually had taken them down. Yeah, it was personal.
Wow.
It had nothing to do with what I was saying. So this is going on, and of course, unfortunately, YouTube will honor the people that complain instead of listening to the people who are putting the video up. And I think that's wrong, because there are a lot of sickos out there that like to flag everybody else's files and this, that, and the other, and it's just ridiculous. So. Well,
I had Merle Funkhauser on once, and he played a lot of his music. Now, he wrote the music, he copywrote the music, so he had total control. I mean, he had the right to play his music anywhere he wanted to. And for that particular video, he had given me 120 graphics, and I had it loaded in so that every minute the graphic changed. It was an amazing show, and they took it down. And I wrote, and I complained. I said, look, he's the author of the music. He holds the copyright for the music. We had every right to put the music up there, and they absolutely took it down.
Unbelievable. I love him. He's such a sweetheart.
He is a sweet
Merle.
Man.
He's always on my hyperspace show, and I thank Mark Eddy for that, because he put him in touch with me. He's just a little angel, and he just plays beautiful music.
Oh, yeah. And, he had his, I think it was his Songs for Moo or something like that.
Yeah.
That was the album that we were trying to promote. And Mark is amazing. Mark is the best bookie ever.
Oh, he is. I swear, one of these days when I'm a billionaire, I'll send him a really good check. He really has sent me the most awesome guests. He really has. Really appreciate him.
He knows everybody.
And you too.
I mean, he's just and he works his fingers to a bone for anyone. He really
he's very helpful.
He cares. Yeah, no, he is.
Mm-hmm.
He is an amazing human being, and I'm so grateful that he got fired twice so I could pick him up.
Yeah, I am too. Yep, he's a good egg.
No, he has been with me almost 5 years, and it doesn't feel like that long at all. And
no.
He's just been spectacular. I cannot say more nice things about him. And he's helped. The number of people that he helps is just profound.
I agree.
He finds guests for people who have podcasts and are needing somebody right away, and he finds places where people who are promoting stuff. I think he's arranged almost 15 or 16 interviews for me to be on other people's shows to promote. Before after what is it? Terrible. Before Roswell. God, the name of the book.
And you're going to be on my show, Hyperspace, by the way. Just a reminder.
I am.
You will be on Hyperspace.
On the 10th. Yes.
Correct. Double check my calendar. Yes. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to have to polish myself up for that interview. Go through your book with a fine-tooth comb.
I suspect we will get off topic almost right away, but
I hope not.
Well,
yeah,
no, it's actually the cool thing about it is that Ken Godsworth called me and asked if he could use some of the material on my website that had been on Patrick's website. And when I had to take Patrick's website down, I brought over a lot of the UFO stuff and put it on my website. And I told him to go ahead, so long as he was putting it out there, and that was a good thing. And then he called me back again and he said, "Would you like to co-author the book?" And I said,
"Oh, nice.
Sure." So we co-authored, and there were places where he wrote something and I wrote something, and they plugged together beautifully. And in essence, the research work was all done by Patrick. So
wow, how nice!
It really is great. I am delighted that the material is getting out there. And in retrospect, now Patrick's been gone for at least 10 years now, and a lot of new research is available, and so we were able to put more material into the records, so that before Roswell has a lot more material in it than once it did. And even the founding fathers, some of them believed in other worlds and stuff like that. And George Washington had a vision at Valley Forge, and it's exciting to be able to go into some of that. Never thought about publishing it, and Ken did, and so he's, I absolutely credit him with the thought of putting it out there in book form. And if it hadn't been for Mark Eddy, I never would have met Ken, and Ken is the one that is republishing the Cosmic Deck and the book that will go with it. So, you meet amazing people when you're doing stuff that you're excited about. And Mark is, Mark has been the middleman for a lot of the things, a lot of the people that I've had on the show, for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he's awesome. Kudos, Mark.
Absolutely is. Yes. Well, he may be. He's probably doing 20 other things as well. But and he's writing a book that is
really.
It's scholarly, though. That's the problem.
It doesn't matter.
It's archaeological.
What is it?
It's archaeological, and it's about. I've read the first 20 pages. I actually understood them, but it's over 100 pages, and I said to him, "I'll help in any way I can, but please don't make me read the whole thing."
Nice.
I mean, he's a great writer. So ask for a synopsis and then interview him on it.
I will. I'd love to. Yeah.
And I think Ken is going to publish it for him. So it's going to broaden broadened Ken's scope for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
But Mark deserves he deserves so much more credit than he gets, and
mm-hmm.
he's such a good person. There aren't that many of them around.
Very good person. No, they're not. And actually, it's funny because I never physically met him. Well, I haven't met you physically, but it feels like we've known each other forever. I mean, it's a spirit thing there. So same thing with Mark. Just a wonderful being. Yeah.
He really is. Too bad if he's not listening. It's too bad. I'll have to make him listen.
That's right. He's gonna blush. He hears us talking about him.
Well, no, he almost always listens, because every now and then I will, like most people, I will be talking and there's a word that I can't find, and he usually knows what word it is, and he'll type it into Skype for me so that I sound semi-intelligent. But no, the paper helpful. He's writing, I mean, he's doing all sorts of research in museums and stuff like that. So it's about ancient artifacts and stuff like that.
Oh, wonderful! And I definitely want to read it.
Yes, you can read it. I'll just brag about him.
Okay.
I did the first 20 pages. I honestly read it. So.
Nice.
Oh yeah. No, but let's get back to topic for just a couple minutes, because I do want people to understand that when talking about love, we're talking about the spiritual aspect of it more than the physical aspect of it, actually, because at least in my view, the spiritual aspect of love is that of creation. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a physical aspect to it. You can love someone to pieces and not be physical with them. And people can be physical and not have the spiritual aspect. But it's when you bring the two together that magic happens in your life. And I think that's what everybody is looking for, that magic, and not understanding if they don't feel it. And if that's the case, check out just which aspect is missing and work on it with your partner, because it's something that can certainly be fixed, can be remedied if both of you recognize there's an emptiness there. You can either work on the physical or work on the spiritual, but once you bring the two of those aspects together, then the concept of love takes on a whole nother meaning. And it's more than avocados and peaches and cream and ice cream and stuff like that. It's a deeper, more sensuous, more spiritual feeling that floods you. And I think that just the physical aspect does not flood you with an emotion. And so that's where sometimes looking for what's missing in yourself that you can enhance, that will enhance the concept of love within your life.
Well said. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I think today everything is so cold and almost emotionless. There's so much going on in the world that is horrifying that we really are missing out on the sweetness and the gentleness and the tenderness and that wonderful aspect of spiritual excitement within you that we're not getting, because we're seeing in the news, especially, so many awful things happening that it's hard to take yourself out of the sadness that you can see with the war in Ukraine and what's happening in Ohio and in other places in the United States, and it's sort of like, what's happening to this world? What's happening to this country?
Right. It almost seems loveless right there. I mean, there's real detachment from spirit, from love, universal love. Definitely something dark about it.
What really ticks me off, and since we only have 10 minutes, we can't go too deeply into it, but the fact that our government is sending billions of dollars to fight a war, and there's a town in this country that is terrified of what's happened, and our government is doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that, to me, there's something wrong with that picture. There's something horribly wrong with that picture. And I don't begrudge the government sending war stuff over to the Ukraine so that the war doesn't hit our shores. I don't want that at all. But these people in Ohio are not Republicans and Democrats. They're Americans. And we're not taking care of them. I went on GoFundMe, and there are a couple of pages set up for the people of that town. And I did donate some money there because I want to do something, but I don't know what, and I don't know what their needs are. I don't know how to help. Possibly just saying something on the radio tonight. These are American citizens who are being ignored, and it seems to me our government owes them a tremendous amount. Yes, the train, the company that ran the train owes them too, but our government owes them something, and they should stop trying to fuel a war and start taking care of the citizens. And I would pray that when election time comes around, everybody notices what our government is not doing that it should be doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with that.
It's sort of like, how would you feel if suddenly your house wasn't safe, your water wasn't safe? Mark was saying that they were capping the wells. Why?
Right.
And their water supply is obviously contaminated. So, it's kind of like, what is going to happen to that town? Is it going to be like Chernobyl, where everybody has to move out, and it's basically just a wasteland for the next couple of thousand years?
Yeah. There's definitely something suspicious about the whole scenery, and I think the biggest thing is that movie they put out prior that was in the same town. The train wreck, and just the coincidence. You can't make this stuff up, the stuff that happens, the parallels that happen. It comes down to that.
It is horrifying.
Very strange. Yeah, it's really weird. But yeah, we're dealing with some strange here. It's this very, I don't know. I was telling you the winds, the elements, the weather patterns are very weaponized. They just don't feel right. Hostile almost,
Well, and it's after the last election where Biden campaigned from his basement. I'm wondering if that same cartel that got him into power will get him into power again, in spite of everything that people are saying about him that is true.
Well, I think at that point, if he gets in, now this whole country's in the sewer. It's going to go, I just can't imagine it recovering.
I think there will be, and I think we are in line for an American revolution.
Well, it certainly should be.
Well,
no doubt about that.
Well, it's a wait and see. So we'll see what happens with the next election. We'll see if it feels fair, and go from there. The last time I voted, I don't think my vote counted. We have voting machines here where they give you this paper, you put into the computer, you make your choices, then you take it out of the computer and you take it over and record it. And the paper was blank. There was no mark on it at all, and they kept saying, "Oh, it's imprinted there. It is imprinted." And I thought, I didn't vote. There's nothing on this paper, and I am being like a stupid, and I'm going to be very confrontational this next time there's an election, because if you give me a blank paper, I put it in the computer, I make my choices, I put record, and then I take the paper out and it's totally blank, and I take it over someplace else and they say, "Oh, it counts, it's here." No, I think,
Weird.
and I think something like that is going on almost in every town, city, and state in the country.
Mhm. Probably. Yeah. It's not to be trusted. It's not reliable.
No, and yet, we go along with it because they say, "Oh, don't worry, your vote's being counted." No, it's not.
Mhm. Yeah. I agree.
It's just unbelievable. So let's give out your information as to where people can find you.
Well, they can find me over at Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. I'm at Hyperspace on KCOR on 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific on Friday, and on Raven Stars Witching Hour on Saturday at freedomslips.com Studio A. And thank you, Barbara. This was an awesome show, another wonderful show. I appreciate being here with you tonight.
It is a lot of fun. So who do you have on your show next?
I have, for Hyperspace, I have Mr. Rowe, and then you're going to be on Hyperspace the week after. So, yeah, it should be fun. Very fun.
Yes, no prep work.
That's right. I'll be prepping.
That's it's funny because I think being on other people's shows is really a lot more fun because you don't have to really do any prepping because you're the topic, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, get to coast and relax.
Yes, and not get dressed up.
That's right. There's no video. We're good.
Definitely. Okay, well, I think we're done, and it's your choice for the next topic for the end of March. So
I'll come up with something very cool. Okay.
Well, we stayed to topic a lot longer than usual tonight. So.
We did. Bravo.
Okay, well, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
This is always, as always, a pleasure having you on.
And likewise, Barbara. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night. Okay, everybody. Show tomorrow night with, I have Michael Carter on, and we'll be talking about his new book. So tune in, stay with us, and don't forget to subscribe when you get a chance. Thanks a lot. Good night.